Hello everybody, I hope everybody's well today and having a good day so far. Today we're going to be looking at the lock date and when you might use this. I'm Laura, if you haven't heard me before, and I'm going to be hosting the webinar today for you. We've also got Michael and Abby in the background as well, just waiting to answer any of your questions around the topic as well. So if you do have any questions, make sure you get them across to them and keep them busy. If you've got any unrelated questions, we'll try and get those answered too, but we will prioritise questions relating to the topic today, which is the lock date. So as usual, just before we get started, just the housekeeping rules there. So your mic will be muted automatically, but you'll see there is a little question icon on the toolbar where you can submit any questions you may have for Michael or Abby. So make sure you just pop them across there, and as I say, keep them busy. And we are also using a new sort of user interface as well. So it might look slightly different to what you have on the screen there, but I believe that the question icon and that the handouts are just on the top right-hand side there. So I will be including those handout slides in the handout section there, as there are links which you might find useful. So if you do want to download those, make sure you do that during this session. And there is also that printer-friendly version if you'd like to make notes there as well. So today I'm going to be giving you an introduction into using the lock date on there and what it's actually used for as well, then how you can set that. Following that, I'm going to go through a series of demonstrations within the program so you can see how that works and the messages and the warnings that you might get if you have set up a lock date on there for it, and the differences between them. And as always, I've provided those links on the guides to our help centre, which can be helpful just to refer back to. And don't forget, you also have the demonstration and the practice data, which you can go into and have a play around with it there if you want to do that too. So first of all, what I'd like to do is just launch a quick poll on there, and I just want to see what you think the lock date is used for. So I'm just going to launch that on your screen there now, and I just want to see sort of what your understanding of the lock date. So what do you think that the lock date is used for? Do you think it's used to prevent certain users posting before a specific date? Or do you think it's to prevent all users to post before a specific date? So I'm just going to pop that on the screen there now. And if you just get those across to me on there. So I'll leave that on there for a few moments just while we get those votes in. And see them coming in there now. So I'll just give you a few more seconds on there just to let everybody get a chance to submit their vote there. Right, so I'll end that now and I'll share those results on there. Don't worry if you haven't had a chance to vote on there for it. So we can see on there, we've got 31% of people think it's to prevent certain users from posting before a specific date. And we've got 69% think it's to prevent all users posting before a specific date there. So the lock date prevents just certain users, so not all users, from posting transactions before a specific date, which you can set in the program there. And I'll come on to more of that as well, just to explain that a bit more. So what does the lock date do? So it controls who can and can't post a transaction before a specific date. So depending on the user's settings, they're going to get one of two messages. So if they're authorized to post before a lock date, they're going to get a warning message, which is on the screen there now. You can see the differences between them. But the warning message is just making them aware that there is a lock date in place, but they can still post into that by clicking yes if they do want to override it. If they're not authorized to do this, they're going to get an error message, which just tells them that they can't post prior to this particular date. Now, you might use a lock date to prevent people from posting into a previous financial year, for example, or if you've closed down a month and you've generated monthly reports, you might not want anybody posting into that month. But the key thing to remember is who can and can't post into the lock date is down to your user settings. And we'll have a look at that in a bit more detail in the demonstration and where you can set that as well. But one thing to remember is that the lock date is a date that's set for all users in the company. It's the user's individual access level that determines if they're presented with a warning message, which they can override, or an error message which prevents them from posting. So you can amend or remove the lock date at any time, just from within the settings menu and selecting a lock date. This is then removed for absolutely everybody on there. And you can also access the lock date through the period end option as well, which I'll be showing you when we go through the demonstration. But with a lock date, a common question is whether this also prevents genuine previous year postings. For example, if you later receive adjustments from your accountant to make it into a previous year, don't worry, you can still do that. So even when you apply a lock date, anybody who logs into the company using the manager logon, or any users who've been given access to override the lock date on there into the previous year maybe, they're going to see the warning message. But those users have got the option to go ahead and post into that lock date just by overriding it there. So I'm going to pop into my program and we'll have a look at it in action on there. So I'll just open up my Sage and get that on the screen there for you there. So first of all, have a look at where you can access the lock date settings. So it's in a couple of different places. So the first place I'm going to show you is in Tools, and it's in the period end option there. We've got two in here. We've got the month end and we've got year end. So if I open the month end option first of all, we just get that standard window just letting us know it's going to close any unsaved data on there. And I'll pull that over because it's opened on the other screen. So within the month end options in here, you've got the option to prevent new transactions before this date using a lock date on there. So as part of the month end, you can tick this box. You can enter a date in here. For the month end, would usually be the last day of your current month on there. You can type it in. You can use the little calendar on there if you want to. And what it'll do is it'll pop it down into here. So when you run the month end, it's going to add that lock date on for you there. So that's the first place that you can see that. Just say yes to cancel out with that. The second place we'll have a look at is exactly the same. So Tools, Period End. This time we'll go into the Year End option. Just drag that one across as well. And again, same place as the month end, it's within the year end options in the middle here. So we've got the option here to prevent new transactions from being entered before this date for a financial year, like it says there, usually the first day of your new financial year. And again, it would just be a case of ticking the box on there. I would leave the date the same if you're running your year end on there because it pops in the first day. My financial year runs January to December on there. So the start of my new financial year would be the 1st of January 26. And it puts the option. So when it runs the year end, it's going to add that lock date in there for you as well. So if you want to add just a lock date without running a year end or a month end process, you could do that from the settings menu. So if we go to settings at the top, and you'll notice just down in the very bottom left-hand corner, I'm logged in as manager as well there, so I can see all of these options without being given the access to them. But we've got the lock date option. So if I click on lock date, drag that over for you, we can just prevent postings before a specific date. So it doesn't have to be run as part of a month end or a year end. We can just tick the box on there and we can put in a lock date on there. So I'm going to change that from 2025 to 2026. So I'm going to set my lock date 1st of January 2026 on there. Okay, and it says all dates prior to this will now be locked and only users with access rights to lock dates will be able to post. So I'm going to save that just by clicking OK, and that's my lock date set. So we'll have a look at posting a transaction into that lock date just to see what kind of message that we get up. So if I go into bank accounts first of all, and I'm just going to have a look at setting up we'll just go for a bank payment on there. So if I click on bank payment at the top, I'll just leave my bank at 1200. Well, I'll use the date, we'll use one before the lock date. So we'll go with the 10th of December 2025. And if I'm just going to pop in nominal code 4,000, keep it simple, and we'll put in £100 on there. Okay, so I'm posting a bank payment on there before my lock date, and I'm logged in as manager. I'm going to click save now. And we get this warning message. So this was one of the shots you would have seen on the slides there. So it says your transaction date is set before the current lock date of the 1st of January 2026. do you want to proceed with posting into that lock date on there? Now, at this point, I can decide to override it if I want to, but the warning is more just there to let you know that there is a lock date in place to remind you. So then if you think, actually, no, I don't want to post into that period, you can just click no. If you do want to go ahead with it, we can just click yes, which I'm going to do. So I'll just click yes to that, and that's it saved. Now close out of that. We go to our transactions. We'll see at the bottom now, we've got that bank payment posted today with the date before the lock date on there. Now, if I went to go and try and edit a transaction, so if I have a look, just any transaction posted before the lock date, so I'm just going to highlight that one. If I click on edit, I get the same warning message again, just telling me that I'm about to edit a transaction that's dated before my lock date and do I wish to continue. If I want to continue, I can just click yes and I can continue as normal there, editing a transaction. So the user settings on there is what determines whether you can actually post into a lock date or not. So we'll have a look. I've got two users set up. So if I go to settings at the top and down to user management, and we'll just go to users, get that generic window just letting us know it's going to close other open windows. And I've got two users set up. So I've got my manager, which is what I'm logged in as at the moment. And then I've got my username Laura, which you can see is partial access on there. So if you wanted to remove somebody's access so they can't post into a lock date, they can't set a lock date either, we click edit, and I'm just going to show you what that looks like. So it'll open up the edit user window, and I'm going to go to level of access. And within here, you can restrict what the users can have access to on here. So remember before when we just accessed that lock date, it was from the settings menu. So if I scroll down here, and I'm going to go to my settings menu, and there's a little arrow which will just expand it further for me. And if we have a look, my Laura username has the lock date settings unticked, which means if I log in as Laura, we're not going to be able to post anything. We're going to get the error message on there rather than the warning message. So I'm going to close out of that for now. I'm just going to cancel out of it. I'm going to log in as Laura, and we'll just look and see what that looks like. So I'm going to go to File at the top, go to Log Off. And we'll get the login screen. I'm just going to log in as Laura. And we can see now just down in the bottom left-hand corner, username Laura. So I'm no longer logged in as manager. So exactly the same. I'm just going to go into bank accounts. We'll try and post exactly the same again, a bank payment. So I'm going to click on bank payment at the top. I'm going to leave the bank as 1200. And I'm going to use the same date. So we'll use the 10th of December, 2025. Nominal code 4,000, just exactly the same. And then £100 again. So these are all just exactly the same details, and I'm going to click Save. You'll see now we get the error message on there. So there's no option to click yes or no, and it tells us the transaction date is set before the current lock date of the 1st of January 2026. If the date's correct, please refer to your system administrator or accountant for advice on how to post into a lock date. So there's no option for me to say, yes, override that. I just can't post that transaction. So if I click OK to that, I have to close out the window. Can't save the changes. It won't let me post it. Just have a look at transactions, and we'll see there's nothing else posted. So it's still just the last one that was posted by manager was that bank payment there. The same with if I try and go and edit a transaction. So I'll just click this one here and see that was posted last year. If I try to go to edit, again, I get the error message on there. It just tells me I don't have permission to edit the transaction because it's dated before the current lock date on there. And just to contact the system administrator, which would be your manager login on there, and they can go and change the settings for you. So I'll close out of that on there as well. So what I'll do is I'll log back in as manager, because there's a couple of other things I want to show you in there as well. So if I go to File at the top, and I'm just going to log off and say yes to that. Just going to go back in as manager. So from the transaction module, you can actually add a column in there to show late entry transactions, which just means you can have visibility and see the transactions which have been created as a late entry and it's been posted before that particular lock date. So I've just got the one that I posted at the bottom there. And along there at the top here, we've got this, we've got the headings along here. Now, if I right click, I can take out and I can add things in. Now, if I wanted to remove things, I can just highlight them and it takes them out for me. The same with if I want to put something in there. So at the bottom, we've got one called late entry date. Now, if I click that to add that column in, you'll see it's added this column in here. And at the bottom, we've got our lock date. So we can see that when we've got a lock date set of the 1st of January 2026, this is a transaction that's been posted prior to that lock date. So that's quite handy if you ever want to just get an eye on, well, you can see the manager's posted it and you can see the lock date that was set, the date it was posted and the date that it was actually entered in as on there. So that's quite useful on there. There's also a report that you can run as well. So if we go to reports at the top, I've actually got it highlighted in my favorites on there. But if we go to reports, you're going to be going into transactions. And if you want to add anything to your favorites, you just click on the star like that. It'll add it into your favorites there. But there is a late entry transaction, which gives you transactions which are posted into a closed period, overriding the lock date. So if you ever wanted to run a report to see the transactions that have been posted into a lock date, you can run this report. So if I preview it, and I'll just show you what that looks like, and I'll leave the criteria values the same. So it's just given us the transactional date between 1980 and 2050, so capturing absolutely everything. You can delete, you can remove or exclude deleted transactions if you want to, but I'm just going to leave it as it is and just click OK. I should only have one because I've only posted one, which I have. So I'll zoom in on this so you can see that a bit better. So it gives us, this is the company name across the top, tells us that it's the late entry transactions, and then it would list them all for you. So that's our date that we've put in for our lock date. It's telling us the date that's been posted as on there, the type, the transaction number, etc. So then you can feed that back and you can have a look and see you've got a list of them there if you did need to run that report. We'll come back out of there. Another thing as well you can do as well, importing transactions. So if you've got a list of transactions which you need to import on there, if you're logged in and you can post before a lock date, that's absolutely fine. What it'll do is it'll just pop it in there for you. It'll just import them as normal. If you've got transactions which before a lock date and you don't have the access rights, I'll show you what that looks like. So I'm just going to log back in as Laura. I'm just going to log off as manager again, and we'll log in as Laura. And I've just got one transaction which I've set up on there just to import. So if I go to File at the top, and I'm just going to go to Import. Now, we'd always recommend taking a backup before you import anything on there, just for the purpose of the demonstration. I'm just going to click Next on there, but we'd always strongly advise you to take a backup before you do anything. And I'm just going to say it's an audit trail transaction. It's an Excel worksheet that I've got as well. And I've just named it Lock Date Audit Trail, just so I know that I'm using it for this demonstration. My first row contains headings as well, so I'm going to leave that ticked. I'm just going to click Next on there. My field mappings are all done for me. And this gives us just a breakdown of what we're going to import. Now remember, I'm logged in as Laura, so we should get an error message that will pop up, which we have done on there. So it's telling us there records that have not been imported, and it tells us why. It says that the date is locked. So we haven't been able to do that. So just to show you, if I go to edit import, it'll open up the file for me. It was a sales invoice I was trying to import, just with the normal details on there. So these are just your required fields when they're in this turquoise colour. But the date was the 15th of October 2015, quite a while ago. I thought I put 2025 in there, but there you go. So it's not going to import it in there. But if I logged in as manager, it would just import that as normal for me, because manager has the capability just to be able to override that. So just so you can see that there as well. So a lock date applies to all users for the company on there. So as you've seen there, it just depends on the user level that you've got when you're in there. You can only apply one lock date as well. So if you're thinking, oh, can I apply more than one? No, you're just limited to that one lock date on there. And you also can't future date a lock date either to prevent future postings. So it's only ones in the past that you can break that down on there. The other thing, so one more thing I just want to touch on as well. So I'm still logged in with the Laura username. Anybody who's in sort of creating invoices within invoices and credits on there, you're still going to be able to create your invoice in here with the previous date, but you're not going to be able to post that. So I'll just show you what that looks like. So I'm logged in as Laura, but don't have access to that lock date posting. If I pop in a date, I'll just change it to the 1st of December. Just choose my first customer on there. And I'm just going to, I've only got one product set up, so it's batteries. I'll just leave the quantity as one. So just leave it nice and standard on there. But the main thing is I'm posting an invoice, or I'm creating an invoice within my invoices and credits, I should say, for a date of the 1st of December 2025. So that's before my lock date. So if I click save, it saves that for me. What it won't allow you to do, and you can see we've got the invoice created there, all nice and fine, but nothing's been posted to the ledgers yet. So at the moment, all it's doing is just sitting within the invoice and credits module. It doesn't update to your ledgers within your transactions. It doesn't adjust your stock, and it doesn't influence anything to do with the customer activity until you hit update ledgers. So if I click on update ledgers now, we get the error message on there, just telling us that one or more of your transaction dates are before the current lock date. So I've been able to create the invoice within invoice and credits. I just haven't been able to post it and update it to my ledgers. If I log back in as manager though, I'll go to file at the top, log off, and it just says it's going to close all open windows there, which is fine. And I'm going to log back in as manager. You see now I'm logged in as manager there. If I go to my invoice and credits module, we'll see that invoice there, not posted, not updated to the ledgers. If I then highlight that, and if I click on update ledgers, I get the warning message, but I can override that and I can say, yes, I want to post that. And I can just say yes to that. It'll give me a preview on there, or try and send it to the printer because I clicked on printer instead of preview on there. But if we go into our transactions module, we've now got, there's our sales invoice that's been posted. And we can see there, it's in that lock date as well. Now, if you just want to remove the lock date on there, dead simple. We're just going to go to settings at the top, and we're going to go down to lock date. And it'll just say, again, it's going to close all open windows. That's absolutely fine. It might open on a different window for you. And all we do is just untick it and click OK. And it's as simple as that. So the main thing to remember on there, you can set a lock date, but it doesn't prevent every single user. It only prevents the users. And I'll just show you that again. So it's in settings, in user management, and then in users. And that's going to give you a list of all of your users in there. And then at that point, you can choose who's going to have the access. So if I highlight my Laura username on there and I click edit, I'm going to go to level of access, and I'm going to go down to my settings menu, because that's where the lock date is when we go to settings and lock date. Use that drop down. And if I don't want them to have access to the lock date, I would just remove it from there. The other quick thing I just want to show you when logged in as manager, which I thought I'd shown you before, but if I just quickly log back in as manager as well, just to show you that you can't actually see the setting. When you go to settings, it doesn't give you the option of the lock date. So I'm logged in as Laura again there. If I go to settings at the top, you'll notice I don't have that lock date option in here because it's not ticked essentially on my username for my settings. The same with if I go to tools and period end and month end. So if I was going to run the month end as Laura, you'll see this part of it's missing. So that lock date's not there. And the same with if I go to tools, period end, and year end on there as well. I'll just drag that across for you we're missing that part about the lock date. So you don't have that option. So you can't go in and set a lock date either if you don't have those permissions. So I just thought I'd show you that too. So I'll just pop back to my slides there. So I have included links to the Help Centre on here, which are the guides which basically just cover what we've just looked at within the demonstration there. There's also a link to the Help Centre as well, just for anything else that you might want to have a look for as well on there. And I'll just keep this open just for a couple more moments there. It looks like we're on top of all the questions. If you do have anything, make sure you get them popped in there just to keep Michael and Abby busy there. Don't forget you're going to get a recording of today's session as well in around about an hour's time by email. So if you do want to watch that, you can watch it back at your own pace or give it to a colleague to watch, and it's available for them to have a look at too there. And you can also access our webinars page at sage.co.uk/webinars. So all the past recordings are free to view. They're all in there with signing up for our upcoming webinars as well. So the link's just on the slide for you. So if you're downloading those, just a bit of easy access for you to get to that page. And also just to let you know, we do have our community hub, which if you haven't seen before, this is something that's like an online forum for Sage 50 accounts users to share knowledge and swap ideas and solve problems together. So it's free to join. And you can ask questions in there where other users, along with Sage experts as well, can help and advise you. And you can keep up to date with what's happening 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, because it's open all time, because it's obviously it's online there as well. But there is a link which just takes you straight to the hub just at the bottom. You can see there, so that communityhub.sage.com. And I've also included an additional survey on here, which I hope you won't mind having a quick look at. So this is just to help us shape our learning around what matters most to you. So there is a QR code on there which you can scan, but there's also a link on the slide for you too. If you download those, you can just click on that link if you prefer to access it that way. But other than that, that brings us to the end of today's session. So I hope that that's been useful, and it just makes it a bit easier to see how and why and who you can set the lock date for as well. And as always, you'll get the standard survey, which is sort of about our webinars today and how we've sort of conducted them as well, just when you're leaving the session, which I'd love it if you could leave us any feedback, because we do read them all on there. We love reading all the comments on there as well. You might want to pop in there if there's a webinar you'd like us to see. To see us run, or perhaps anything you'd like to see done differently, or maybe just something that you've liked on today's session. But other than that, I'll leave it open just for a moment while we'll have a look at those questions. But I can see that it looks like Michael's answering those there now for you. But other than that, thank you for attending, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.